In a cave called Shanidar in the mountains of northern Iraq, a man lay on his side with his knees pulled toward his chest. He had been dead for about 70,000 years. The soil around him held an unusual amount of ancient pollen, and for decades, scientists argued about what it meant. Were those flowers placed by someone who knew him? Was this a funeral, or just wind, rodents, and chance? The argument is still alive. But the body underneath it raises a stranger question. What did ancient humans actually do with their dead, and when did the practice begin? Go back to Shanidar Cave and stand at the edge of that body. The bones are curled, almost peaceful, the kind of shape a tired person makes before falling asleep. A team led by Ralph Selecki uncovered the remains in the late 1950s, and around the skeleton, in the dirt, were unusually high concentrations of flower pollen. They called him Shanidar 4. The original interpretation was electric. Neanderthals, the people we used to imagine as grunting and brutish, had laid flowers on their dead. Later, researchers pushed back. Maybe the pollen came from burrowing bees or rodents stashing nests in the soil. Maybe the wind carried it in. The flower burial may not be a funeral the way we picture one, but what is harder to argue with is that this person did not just fall and die alone. The body was positioned. The cave came back to those people, again and again, with their dead. Shanidar is not the only sign. At La Chapelle-aux-Saints in France in 1908, a Neanderthal skeleton was found in a small pit cut into the floor of a cave. The bones were articulated, meaning they had not been scattered by scavengers. Something had protected the body from the usual chaos of decomposition. At La Ferracie, also in France, an entire group of Neanderthals seems to have been placed together over time, including a small child, buried beside what may have been deliberately placed stone blocks. None of this is a Christian funeral. None of this is a pyramid, but it is also not nothing. It is a pattern. The dead were placed, the dead were returned to. That alone forces a strange thought. Long before our species was the only one left, another kind of human was already treating bodies as something different from waste. Not always, not everywhere. Most Neanderthals likely died and were not buried at all. The fossil record is patchy by accident and patchy by their behavior. But in a few cold caves, across thousands of years, somebody was making a choice. Then the story gets stranger because some of the oldest possible burials may not be ours and may not be Neanderthal either. In South Africa, in a system called Rising Star, paleoanthropologist Lee Berger and his team had to recruit small, slim cavers to slip through a vertical chute called the Chute of Despair to reach a hidden chamber. In that chamber, they found bones from a previously unknown human species, Homo naledi, small brains, long arms, a face that mixed ancient features with surprisingly modern hands. And then the unsettling part. The bodies seem to have been deliberately deposited in the chamber. No predator marks consistent with a kill site. No flood pattern dragging them in. Just bones in a place that would have been almost impossible to reach without effort, without fire, without choice. The dating placed Homo naledi at roughly 335,000 to 236,000 years ago, far older than the cave cut makers of England, older than the French Neanderthal pits, possibly older than Shanidar by a wide margin, and their brains were the size of an orange. The implication is uncomfortable. If Homo naledi really was carrying bodies into that chamber, then doing something with the dead might not require a big brain at all. It might be older than our family tree expected. Not all archaeologists are convinced. It is a profound shift in what we thought set us apart from the rest of the family tree, and it has not been settled yet. The debate is loud and ongoing, but the bones are real. The chamber is real, and the question they raise refuses to die. What this first wave of evidence tells us is small but sharp. Treating the dead is not a privilege of modern humans. Other kinds of humans were already doing it, sometimes in ways that look gentle, sometimes in ways that look ritualized, sometimes in ways we still cannot explain. And once you accept that, the next question becomes almost impossible to avoid. If the act is that old, then why? What were they doing it for, and what did they actually do to the bodies themselves? Walk into a different scene. Sungir in modern Russia around 34,000 years ago. Two children lie head-to-head in a single grave, their bodies covered in red ochre. Around them and on them are roughly 13,000 small ivory beads, each one drilled and shaped by hand. Bracelets, pendants, fox teeth, ivory spears straightened from mammoth tusks. Whoever did this spent thousands of hours. This was not a quick burial after a hard day. This was an investment of an entire community's time in two dead children. That is not a casual act. That is a society saying that the dead still belong to them. Red ochre shows up over and over in burials across the Ice Age world, sometimes on the bones, sometimes packed under the body, sometimes sprinkled across the head and chest. The pigment is iron oxide, a deep, rusty red, and it may have been used to imitate blood, to mark protection, to mark identity, or for reasons we will never fully recover. What we can say is that ancient humans did not just dig a hole and walk away. They carried color into the grave. Now turn to Gough's Cave in southwest England, where the picture darkens fast. Around 15,000 years ago, modern humans in this cave were eating other modern humans. The cut marks on the bones are not random. Long bones were cracked to extract marrow. Skulls were cleaned with the same techniques used on butchered animals. And then the strangest detail. Some of those skulls were carefully shaped into smooth, rounded cups. The edges were trimmed. The base was kept. The result is unmistakable. A vessel made from a person. What does that mean? It might be funerary cannibalism, where eating the dead is a way of keeping them, an extreme form of mourning. It might be ritualized aggression, the consumption of enemies. It might be famine. It might be both ancestral honor and violence layered together. Modern minds want to separate love and horror, but ancient practices often refuse that line. The skull cups of Gough's Cave are not proof that those people were monsters. They are proof that the dead body was treated as meaningful, sometimes terrifyingly so. There are other paths too. In parts of Europe and Asia, archaeologists have found defleshed bones, cleaned of their soft tissue before burial, as if someone wanted to keep only the structure of the person, not the flesh. This practice, called excarnation, sometimes meant leaving the body exposed to scavengers, sometimes meant deliberately stripping it. Either way, the bones themselves were what mattered, and the soft body was something to be removed first before the next stage could happen. In Tibet, a version of this idea survived into modern times as sky burial, where the body is offered to vultures on a high stone platform. It is not abandonment. It is the opposite. It is a deliberate return. And in many places, the body simply went into the ground with a few things from life: a flint blade, a necklace of shells, a favorite tool. The objects are small, but the message is clear. These people thought of the dead as someone who might still need something, or as someone whose belongings could not casually be reused. The grave was not a trash pit. It was a doorway. When you line up the patterns, the strangeness becomes the point. Ancient humans buried, painted, ate, dismembered, exposed, and adorned their dead. Different cultures did opposite things with the same intent, and similar things with opposite intents. The behavior is wildly varied. What is constant is that the dead were not nothing. They were something. They had to be dealt with. They had to be marked. That is what makes this question more disturbing than it looks at first. The treatment of the dead is the oldest evidence we have of a mind aware of itself. A creature that buries another is a creature that understands loss, time, and absence. By the time our ancestors were placing flowers, beads, ochre, and skull cups, they were already doing the most human thing of all. They were trying to hold on to what was gone,